Today we are reacting to couch flipping, the best side hustle no one talks about. So I was just sent this video and I was asked, hey, what are your thoughts on this idea? And I haven't watched it yet, so I figured, hey, why not just watch it together, and then I'll give my commentary along the way as we watch this video. Just on face value, I'm a little bit skeptical because the thumbnail does say $8,000 per month, and that seems like a lot of couches to be flipped in a single month. But you can make money flipping stuff, reselling stuff, so I'm going to give it a chance, and let's dive right in.
Okay, so before I tell you what exactly the side hustle is, let me give you the backstory of how I figured this out. So back in 2013, my wife and I, Mindy, had just gotten married in October, and we moved into our first apartment together. And at the time, she was only 21 years old, I was 24, we didn't have money. So in order to furnish the apartment, I ended up buying all the furniture on Craigslist. I was getting a couch here for $100, a table there for $50, I got our beds, I got literally everything you can imagine, all used. I want to say we furnished the whole apartment for like $1,000. And me being an entrepreneur and a go-getter, I knew that we had gotten great deals on everything. I would never pay market value for anything, whether it's used or not. And in my mind, when it was done, I was thinking that we could probably resell it all for like $3,000. But obviously I wasn't going to do that. It was just a thought in my mind.
So I agree with this. I'm kind of in the same boat here. I purchased my house and furnished most of it with used furniture, or as many of you know, I own a moving company, and back when I did moves, people would give me furniture all the time, and sometimes really nice furniture. So it's totally possible to furnish an entire home in a nice way with used or relatively cheap furniture. And I've definitely thought to myself, hey, I could resell all this for much more than I bought it for. But each individual piece was a specific good deal that I was patient for, and I don't know, it is possible.
At the time, I was a struggling realtor, not really making too much money. So I actually decided to go and be a substitute teacher. I thought it was kind of cool because they would pay you anywhere from 90 to 120 bucks a day. I ended up reading a lot of books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but I also started thinking about ideas of how I could make more money for our young family. And I kept coming back to this idea of, we bought all this undervalued furniture and I could go sell it right now and make good money. And as I thought about it more, I said, well, what if I just found one good deal a day? If I found one good deal a day, I could make 200 bucks.
So this, I will say, is something that's very similar to a lot of entrepreneurs I know. They kind of do something either to benefit themselves in some way, or just a small project just to make a couple bucks or save a couple bucks. And they're like, hey, there might actually be something here. And then sometimes the entrepreneurial gears are turning in their head and they're like, this could be something big. They try it out, expand it a little bit, and they make more and more money. That's a pretty common story. So that does add up in this way so far.
So I decided to test my theory. I said, hey, if I can buy one good deal, that takes me like an hour. I don't have to sit in this classroom for 6 hours. I bought one couch and I took it back to our apartment. I ended up putting it back for sale, and a few days later we sold it and made $200. And that's when the light bulb went off.
Now, I absolutely agree that that is totally possible, and I believe that that happened. It's totally possible to find a good deal, a couch for $100, and then potentially sell it for quite a bit more than you bought it for. I think 100% it's possible to find a good deal, but I know for myself, I'm someone who has got a ton of good deals buying used stuff, but it has always come down to me just being extremely patient. So by default, there's not a ton of deals to find where you're going to get an amazing return. And that's what I'm most skeptical about. I think it's 100% possible to do one or multiple of these, but how you turn it from that one $200 piece of profit to $8,000 in profit is how I'm really curious how that happens. So we'll see.
I ended up getting a 10 by 30 storage unit that I could drive up to. That was going to be my warehouse and my storefront, and I was all in. I was just buying everything I could that seemed undervalued. I'd clean them up a little bit, take pictures, throw them back on Craigslist, and offer free delivery. That was the key. Offering free delivery made people pay top dollar.
I will say, owning a business that does delivery and moving, and that is a huge selling point if someone will deliver it for free. However, that also makes it much, much harder to scale because he's doing this all himself. So it doesn't take much for him to go and deliver, this $50, $75, $100 piece that he purchased maybe for half the price. But if he was paying someone to do that, there's pretty much no margins to be made. But if you're just a single person flipping, that is possible. Also, a 10 by 30 unit, you can fit an okay amount of inventory, but you're not going to have a massive storefront. I actually know a guy who does Something similar, but through wholesaling through stores that they might have a piece of furniture that has a scratch on it. They sell it to him for much less. He posts it on sites like OfferUp, Craigslist, things like that, and has a whole warehouse where people will purchase stuff, and he is extremely successful with it.
So back to the story. I've got a nice truck now. I've scaled it up. I've got multiple 10 by 30 storage units now because I'm buying so much inventory. And I'm realizing what things I like selling, what things I don't. I realized real quick that appliances were not good. They always broke. They were super heavy. People always complained about them, so I pretty much stopped buying appliances. The other thing I didn't like about appliances was I needed somebody else to help me load and unload them.
That's something that I was really curious about the unload and loading of furniture with just one person. With the sofa, it's possible with one person for sure, but yeah, with a lot of appliances, especially if you're trying to get it up into a pickup truck, that's gonna be tough. So I can agree with that.
What I realized as I did it was that couches were easily the best things you could buy. There was a ton of supply of them. You could get a lot of good deals. You could load it by yourself, and you might be thinking to yourself, there's no way you could load it by yourself. How? Well, you tip one end up onto the truck, then you go and pick up the back end and lift it up and push it into the truck, and that's it. It's super simple to do it by yourself. So I became really niche in my couch searches on what I wanted. I was basically going after neutral colored sectionals that had covers that could be removed so that we could just throw them in the washer and put them back on. Those were the best sellers by far. I could pick them up for $100 to $200 and sell them for $200 to $300 more than what I paid for them. Every single time without fail.
So that makes sense. There was some trial and error. He found what worked best for him. Happened to be sectional couches. I guess leather sells better than microfiber. I don't have any personal experience in that. It also makes total sense that cleaning it up makes it either easier to resell. The ones that you can't clean as well aren't as easy to resell. That adds up.
At one point, I had up to 4 10 by 30 storage units that you could just drive up to.
Wow. Now that starts to get expensive. A 10 by 30 can, depending on what area that it's in, can range anywhere from $200 a month to $400 a month, maybe even $500 depending if it's a really nice area. So that's a lot of expense there. 4 of those could easily be $1,000 a month in expense just for storage units. So the $8,000 a month profit, that means you have to sell even more couches to make that profit.
And it was super cool because whenever somebody would come look at one couch, if they didn't like it, I could go sell them on another couch. I'd be like, hey, here's my units. I'll show you around. Take a look. Maybe there's something else you like. And so a lot of times a potential customer that came for one couch ended up buying another.
That is kind of nice. It's like having a little storefront, but in a 10 by 30, you're really only going to be able to set so many sofas up and make it look like a storefront and not just jam packed. So, I mean, if it's a storefront, one 10 by 30, I can imagine you could only fit like 10, maybe 8 to 12 to actually be kind of on display in each 10 by 30 unit.
And I got to the point where I was making on average $8,000 net profit every month. This was after paying my gas, the storage expense, and that was it. And the overhead on it was not very much because we're buying these couches for $100 to $200.
The $8,000 part just still seems so high to me. So let's just assume some expenses. $1,000 a month for those 4 storage units. Let's say another $1,000 in just miscellaneous expenses, and the rest is profit. So he has to do $10,000 in profit after the sale of the sofas to make $8,000 in net. So $10,000 divided by, he says he makes $200 profit on each sofa, is 50 sofas sold per month. And he's doing all the pickups and drop-offs himself, so that's 100 pickups and drop-offs in total, 50 each way because he's doing them all himself, plus a lot of negotiating. I mean, that's almost 2 sofas every single day sold, which means 4 pickups and negotiating. It's possible, I guess, but it'd be hard time-wise to sell many more than that, I would think. It's not a thing where a customer's coming and buying 4 when they come there. Plus, you have to wonder how many days you have to list one in order to sell one. Like, it's not like you're buying one, then you're selling it the next day. It might be 2 weeks, it might be 3 days, it might be 2 months. So what is the inventory turnover there, I wonder? Do you have to hold 200 couches in order to sell 50 in a month? That's what I'm really curious about. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it seems really hard to do $8,000 a month.
I had months where we made $12,000. Man, I remember during Christmas time when everybody was selling their stuff because they're going to buy a new one for Black Friday or whatever. I made $12,000 one December because we bought so much inventory and sold.
Well, I mean, $12,000, let's say the expenses are still $2,000, so that's $14,000 that he needs to make $12,000 in profit. So $200 profit each sofa. That's 70 sofas that month. That's a lot of sofas.
And also during that time as well, I ended up hiring my friend to help me with those couches while I was transitioning into real estate. The way that we'd work that was I would find the couches on Craigslist, I'd negotiate, I'd send him to go pick them up and pay for them. He'd bring them back to the warehouse, strip them down, get them cleaned up. I would relist them on Craigslist and let him know when he needs to go deliver it to another house. I'd pay him $50 every time he picked one up, $50 every time he brought one back. And we were making $200 a couch, so he'd basically make 100 and I would make 100.
That seems tough. Like I was saying earlier about the delegation, I don't think there's enough money to go around to do that and actually make a profit, because he's still going to have to do all the negotiating, finding deals, finding buyers, and now he has half as much that he's making. It's going to be really hard to actually make some actual margins here.
When you get into 1,000 negotiations, no matter what the price is, you start learning people's tendencies, you learn how to negotiate, you learn how to make low offers. I know that that business was a way to set me up for these bigger businesses. So I'm super grateful that I got to experience all that.
I agree with that, and I think with most small businesses, that is in fact the case. You learn a lot of skills that you can transition into larger businesses in the future. So that really is the bulk of this video. For the sake of not making this reaction video too long, I just want to check one thing before we go here. And I want to see how many sectionals are actually for sale so we can see what kind of market is actually there. I just feel like one person buying and selling so many seems kind of hard to do. And he's in Las Vegas, so I went on Las Vegas Craigslist. He said he used Craigslist for everything, and I searched for sectionals, and I did a price range between $50 and $200. So he said he bought all of his for $100, so I made a pretty big range here, bigger than what he typically would buy in. And listed for sale in the last 30 days, there's only 15 sectionals for sale. So he would have had to buy all of those times 3 or 4 in order just to make enough sales to do that much bulk. That seems really hard to do. I don't want to point any fingers, but it just doesn't, I don't see how $8,000 a month can be made. I definitely see that there is money to be made. It could be a very viable side hustle, especially if you're taking better pictures, if you're cleaning them up. Most people are terrible at selling stuff, so there's a huge opportunity there, especially if you've done it for a while and you get really good at selling stuff and getting good deals. But like I said earlier, the ability to find a really good deal and make a really good deal both entail a ton of patience. So I don't see how it's possible to do 1 to 2 of those every single day, 1 to 2 extraordinary deals where you're tripling the price of something every single day in that much bulk. I think it'd be totally possible to do 1 a week, maybe 2 a week if you're doing really well. I just don't see how those numbers are completely possible. I would love to be proved wrong here, maybe see some kind of statements or profit and loss or exactly how this much bulk was possibly done on just Craigslist when there's not even that many for sale. I would love to learn more about that, but I just don't see exactly how that's possible just given the market. Let me know what your thoughts are on this. Until next time, I'd like to thank you for watching, and I hope you have a profitable day.